This episode is airing during Holy Week, and one of the ways to think about the events of Holy Week is that it is a flipping of the script of expectations in a number of ways. In this episode, I'd like to talk about that. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer here, Senior Pastor of St. Philip the Deacon in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. Good to be with you, as always. We're taping this and publishing this episode during Holy Week of 2022, so I have Holy Week on my mind. And as a preliminary comment, let me note that we're going to be publishing this on both the St. Philip the Deacon YouTube channel as well as the Reflections on Faith YouTube channel. For the last 2 years, we've been publishing these exclusively on the Reflections of Faith channel, but because Holy Week is in fact the high point of the year, it's the most important week of the church year, we thought we'd include this on the St. Philip the Deacon channel, which has typically been reserved for other church events, just to expand the audience as widely as we can. So if this is your first time seeing one of these episodes, welcome, and if you would like to subscribe to the Reflections on Faith channel, you're free to do that at the site. We'll link it below or in the box. Okay, so I've got a couple things on my mind related to Holy Week. One of those is a sort of very fundamental question. Just yesterday, the day before we're taping this anyway, was Palm Sunday. That, of course, is the Sunday when we remember and celebrate Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, when the crowds are cheering him on. And one of the questions that's always puzzled me from the time I was a little child is, what happens between Palm Sunday and Good Friday when apparently those same crowds are now shouting to condemn Jesus? That's a really important question. I'm not going to address it in this episode because instead I'm going to point you to a recent sermon I preached on our Wednesday night series a couple of weeks ago that talks about that. So if you'd like to watch that, we'll provide a link to that above. So that's looking sort of backwards from Palm Sunday to the events at the end of Holy Week. Now, as we look ahead to Holy Week, what we are going to be celebrating is Maundy Thursday, which is Jesus' Last Supper. Then Good Friday, when all of the trials of Jesus happen and eventually he is crucified for our sake. And then over the weekend, we will celebrate, of course, Easter, both on late Saturday at a service we called First Light of Easter here, and then on triumphal, joy-filled services on Easter Sunday morning. And I encourage you to come along with us for those retelling of the story at those services. In this episode, I will just make one sort of point about one way to think about those events, and it's, you might say it's a flipping of the script, and it's most easily observable by paying attention to the disciples. So again, I just mentioned we moved from Maundy Thursday to Good Friday to Easter Sunday. And if you watch what happens with those disciples, some of the high points, or low points, I suppose, is Maundy Thursday, the Last Supper. Judas betrays Jesus, his teacher, his friend, into the hands of his enemies, who he knows are going to do terrible things to him. So that's a bad start for the disciples. Later that night, Peter, very famously, denies knowing Jesus. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Again, this is supposedly the most important disciple, and yet here he is saying to the authorities, I didn't know him. And then you fast forward to Jesus' trials and his crucifixion, and all of the disciples, save for one, at John, and also the women disciples, all the other disciples abandon Jesus, right? So Judas betrays him, Peter denies him, the other disciples abandon him. Now, he's killed, they know he's dead. The Romans were very good at putting people to death. That wasn't a fiction. And now on early Sunday morning, there's this rumor, the disciples start to hear, that the tomb is empty and Jesus isn't in it. Now, we see this from the perspective of 2,000 years later, and we think, oh, they must have been so happy. But I want you just to pause and think about what were they thinking who had abandoned and denied Jesus when they hear he might still be around. They're going to be what? Scared and even terrified. Why? Because the script of the world is that he is coming back to get them and get revenge on these people who have abandoned him and denied him, who have let him down. and they're afraid of what he might do to them. And what does he do when he finally makes himself known to those disciples who have behaved so poorly? He says things like, "Peace be with you." He says things like, "I still love you. You are my friends. We're still okay." And then more than that, he says to them, "I've got work for you to do to spread that love to a world in need." That flipping of the script, which is one really important way to think about the Easter story, is, as Dorothy Sayers reminds us, not only a story, but a true story, the turning point of history, and, as she says, the only thing that has ever really happened. I look forward this coming week to recounting that story through all of the services that we will offer. I hope you will join us, and I hope you will invite people to come along to be part of that story, both in these next few days and in the weeks and months that follow. I wish you all a blessed Holy Week, a joy-filled Easter, and as always, be well, stay in touch, and God bless.